Welcome to the If They Can Do It podcast, the podcast that interviews absolutely ordinary people who do extraordinary things and wants you walking away thinking, hey, if they could do it, so can I. And so this week, you guys, one thing I have absolutely loved about doing this podcast is that it has given me an excuse to think through my life and think, which friends do I have who I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to connect with them. I need to reach out again. I need to talk to them because quite frankly, they are pretty awesome, doing amazing things. And then so you go onto Instagram, you go on your little telephonic device, you look up some of the things that they're doing and they're still cool. Years later, who would have thought it? This girl has made me laugh. This girl has made me chuckle. I've looked at some of her cards that she's created, and I can't help but laugh. And it turns out that the goal of what she does is to make you laugh. And this year and in 2020, I think we could use a little bit more of that. And so, Kiwi, how's it going?
Hi, that was the best intro I've ever been given. I feel like I've been all pumped up, like you're my hype man right now. It's amazing.
I'll just get a t-shirt made that says I'm with Kiwi and then just point to you. It'll go in a circle. So if you move, I'll just move it to where it's always pointing to you.
I'm really bad at being nice to myself or saying nice things about myself. So I'm like, oh, wow, that was so nice. Wow, this is what other people think. Who knew?
That is absolutely amazing. So Kiwi, I feel like there's no other place to start than with the name of your company. All right. So what is the name of your company?
Okay, so the name of my company is Craft Boner.
Okay. I'm going to stop you right there.
Yes.
So what is a craft boner?
Okay, so I think of a craft boner as when you get really excited for something. I used to say it's like kids making the grabby hand motion. When kids would be like, oh, I want it. Okay. I'm doing my hands. You can't see, obviously you're listening to me, but you know what I'm talking about. When kids do the little grabby hands, like that's how I see Craft Boner, as being excited, like really excited for something and just wanting it.
Wow. And even going on the website and just reading about how it all started. I mean, it truly was like you enjoy laughing and you wanted to help other people laugh, and part of the reason why they're laughing is, you're just real on your cards, whether it's a birthday card, anniversary card, a whatever, right? I mean, it's dealing with real emotions, all the things that you would say on a card, but that don't exist, if that makes sense. Am I right?
Yeah, I've heard people describe it as the things that I think in my head and think no one else thinks, but put on a card. I think my goal has sort of evolved. It used to just be that I want to just make people chuckle, but now it's more that I want to bring a little bit more honesty into the world, because a lot of my cards deal with complex. I mean, when you see my card, you're like, what are you talking about? They're not complex. They just make you laugh. But the goal, the idea behind it is to deal with some of the complex emotions around fear and anxiety, even when things are happy, right? So I have a card that says, congrats on your new baby. I bet that's really cool and also a little bit terrifying because having a kid would be so scary. And so that's sort of the goal is yes, I want to make people laugh, but also I want to bring a little more honesty into greeting cards. Sometimes they're sort of sugary and sweet, and life is full of so many different complex emotions that we all have in common and don't even realize that we do. That's what I try to bring into the world or put into the world or whatever else. And my favorite thing is just seeing people read them and react to them or think, oh my gosh, that's my friend Kelly, or oh, I think this all the time. I didn't think anyone else thought this way. And it turns out that, well, I'm getting on a tangent, but there's this Alanis Morissette little snippet that she talks about how she wrote a lot of different albums um for her audience. Like, she wrote a lot of albums for people and they never really took off. They never really connected. And then she wrote Jagged Little Pill for herself because she was going through a breakup. And she thought, I'm the only one who feels this way or feels these feelings. And that's the thing that took off, because I think we don't realize how connected a lot of our human emotions are. We think it's just an us thing, but in reality, it's probably a lot of people are feeling the things that you're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there anything, like, in that process, was there anything, a specific thing that happened where you were like, okay, yeah, of course I want to be funny and of course all of that, but I also want to be honest and help people cope with these things and know that, hey, this is normal to feel these things about a certain thing. What was the point at which you kind of shifted and that vision changed a little bit?
When I went to therapy. I mean, kind of, not really. When I started to work on myself, and realized that, for better or worse, I have sort of a way of putting some of these feelings into words. I mean, the underlying current's always humor, but yeah, I don't know if there was like a particular, but I do remember sort of the shift from, oh, let's just put funny quotes from TV shows on things, to sort of more, let's talk about my own emotions and see if it resonates with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was I think it was before therapy, I'd gone through a couple different breakups that that really hit me hard, and I just wanted a deeper connection with people, and I found that greeting cards were my way to sort of forge that bridge, because without having to be really awkward in person, right? Because you can send someone a card that says everything that you want to say without having to like peel open your soul to someone in person on the spot.
Yeah, I think that's really true, and that element of honesty, I think, is refreshing in what you do. That change, though, I mean, because how long were you in business before that change happened?
Years.
Wow, that's such a huge risk to do that, because what if people don't respond the same way?
Yeah. It was, and I think that I was so busy at the time. I think it was right around the time that I started working on the business full time. And I think that I was so busy at the time that I didn't even notice. I didn't even think of it as a risk. I just thought, let's just go down this rabbit hole. And then the second that I started to feel conscious of it, I got really self-conscious of it and started to peel back from it and started to make things that I thought people would like. And the things that I thought people would like, people don't like. Or they like, but it doesn't resonate. And I learn this over and over and over again when I'm making something, that if it's something that makes me laugh or that makes me feel seen, then it will probably do the same for somebody else, versus what I think will sell well. And so it's a very slow, I feel like it's like a cog learning over and over again, like, hey, yeah, stick to your gut and go with that, because it's gonna do better for you than just trying to be a wheel that just turns willy-nilly. I don't know if that's a great metaphor, but
yeah, I mean, any excuse to use the word willy-nilly, I am pro that.
Right? It's so fun to say, willy-nilly. Also, my boyfriend's name is Bill, and sometimes I call him Willie, and he hates it. So
there you go. I love it. I should not tell Kendra that, because then she'll get some sort of nickname for me. So it almost seems like your cards and everything are almost like a quasi like diary, because it's you processing in real time and then just giving other people to process the same thing.
It's really adept of you to pick up on that, because I was in business for 8, 9, what is this year? 2021. Oh, so what I'm trying to say is, a few months ago, my therapist told me that. He was like, oh, your business is a way for you to process your feelings and help other people by sharing them. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I thought about it a little longer, and I realized that that is exactly what I do, not just with cards, but like on my Instagram too, is um a lot of me trying to figure myself out actually winds up helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's weird that, yeah, I've never heard a diary, but yes, it's like me sharing my diary with the world, which is so funny because my diary when I was like 12 or 13 was so embarrassing. And I would have never imagined that like years down the road, I'd just be like ripping myself open, being like, I don't know, is any of this helpful to anyone? Let's throw it out there.
I mean, it's true. And then I saw a lot of like that you do a lot with current events. You know, the election was obviously a big thing. All of that kind of stuff. And I think just the anxiety, even in the past year. I mean, you know that you've been in business for longer than that, but even the past year, companies like yours and what you do have almost become a necessity to exist. To go, yes, you're allowed to feel this. Get it out. You're not alone. All of that. I mean, have you gotten any of that feedback at all?
Yeah, I think people, I hate the word authentic because I feel like it's overused
Mm-hmm.
continually, but I do think that people crave the realness, the rawness, the messiness, um the behind the scenes, the good and the bad. And I think that's something that, especially on social media, that I get frustrated with when I feel like I'm just looking at someone's highlight reel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it feels like I don't really know them at all, and Instagram can be so terrible, but like in some ways it can be so amazing that it brings people together. But I think it's all sort of like how you approach it. And so I have a lot of people, especially on Instagram, say thank you for showing us yourself. Like thanks for, and I should disclaimer and say that if you're not comfortable showing your whole self, I think that that is, I call it my superpower. I call vulnerability my superpower because I know that not everyone is comfortable with it, and it doesn't bother me at all. I don't really get vulnerability hangovers. I don't mind sharing like the in-depth stuff in my heart and my soul and my head and my whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to share it because that's a skill, I feel like, and it helps people realize that they're not alone, but that also they can do the same thing. Especially when it comes to talking about politics or current events, we've been told for so long that your business cannot be political.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are really scared to get political with their business, but like you said, as we're learning, that's sort of a benchmark for how companies operate, especially small businesses, what they believe in, and it's how you find where you want to put your dollars, right? Like how you find people who believe in the same things that you do, and I do think it's more important than ever.
Yeah, I think and you see like large businesses, small businesses, everybody going that route. And I guess when you start getting feedback like that where people start being vulnerable with you on Instagram and all of that. I mean, and maybe this is just me, but like I would feel the pressure that, oh my gosh, somebody says I help them. Now I have the pressure to help them and help others, and I'm not sure I can do that. I mean, that can be a heavy thing. What I love about what you're doing though is, you're helping people by helping them laugh and process it too. But do you feel that
Yes.
pressure ever?
Oh yeah. Oh, constantly, all the time. DMs is the big one for me, and I haven't found a way to delicately talk about it because I want to say keep sending me your DMs. I love seeing your DMs.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'll get hundreds of DMs, and I can't get to them all, and that's mostly where I feel the pressure, especially if people are laying their hearts out to me or sharing a really vulnerable or intimate story with me,
Hmm.
and I can't always get to it because it would literally suck up my entire day if I tried to go through every single DM. So that is where I feel the most pressure. I definitely do feel the pressure, but I try to talk about it, right? Like I try to that's there's no holds barred, no bars, no holds barred, no holds barred when it comes to what I'm willing. Well, as long as it just involves me. Like if it involves another person, I'm not going to go there. But if it just involves like me and my feelings, then I try to share it, and I do try to share. I especially this year as Instagram has gotten a little bit like more overwhelming and felt more like pressure. I try to share, hey, here are some of my boundaries. I'm just a human person trying to figure this out. Because I think it's a good reminder for other people, but I also think it's a good reminder for me to just say, I'm just one person. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure it out and share as I go, and we'll see what happens. You're like on this ride with me. I'm not the train conductor. I'm a passenger just like you.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's probably why the cards aren't like, here's the 3 steps to get over loss. Here's the 3 steps. Like it's not necessarily that. It's present in the moment. Here's an emotion about a given topic. That's probably a lot of why it's that instead of a self-help book.
Yeah, and I feel like I do sometimes try to give people advice, but I always try to frame it as, here's what I've learned. Here's what's helped me, not like this is not a one size fits all sort of thing. But it is nice to sort of share. For me, I see those as more successes than like material successes. Like, oh, here's how I learned to deal with my body. Or like, here's how I make sure I don't get depressed when I'm in a fitting room and something doesn't fit me. Like, just little things like that people can latch onto and start to see as oh, another person, just like your podcast, like, oh, another person can do this, or another person has figured out a tool to help with this. Maybe it'll help me too.
Yeah, I think that just speaks to something powerful that you do too, because I think about cards that I would just you go into the store, and I think this is a lot how your business had started. You go into a store and you're reading these cards, and they're sweet, and you're like, oh yeah, this person really likes their parent or their grandparent or whatever. I guess I'll get this one and do that. But I've never really thought about a reaction going, I'm gonna write Hallmark, or I'm gonna write this card company and be vulnerable in that sense, the same way that you described. And I don't know. I don't know why it's powerful, but I think you've certainly have proven that it is.
Thank you. Yeah, I think especially in pandemic times, people want connections, and I'm just like, again, just like any other person, I want connections too. And so I think that I talk to a lot of small businesses who sort of get stuck in seeing it as my product, these customers, how can I sell more of my product to these customers? And I've always tried to take that away and ask myself, how can I connect with people better? Because I think that is such a big thing. I mean, it sounds ridiculous saying it out loud. I sell greeting cards and stickers, but I really have tried to create a community of like-minded people who then can buy the greeting cards and stickers, but like also they don't have to. They can just chat with me or watch my videos or whatever else. Like, and I think that brands are seeing, I know this isn't a business podcast, but I think that brands are seeing like success with making sure people know the person behind the business. And again, even if it's a big business, it's all people, it's all humans. It used to be, I feel like, back in the olden days, it would be like, okay, I need a product, let me shop around for the best product, and then I'll buy it based on price or quality or value, like whatever other metrics you have, and it didn't really matter as much of who was behind the product, what is their ethos, what do they believe in, how do they source the product, etc., etc. And so now I want to make sure that people understand, like I remind people constantly that there's a human being behind this, putting this into the world. And I think that the more that I do that, the more my business grows. And because they know me, they like know that I'm not just here to make money. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just here to put out products like constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I really do crave connection more than sales or like anything else. I just want to hear people's stories. I want to share my story. And for me, the venue for that has become greeting cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that rings true with people as they see that I'm not just making greeting cards to make greeting cards. Um, it's just a little more than that, which
Yeah.
sounds kind of, I don't know, holier than thou or like high and mighty, but it is what it is.
I mean, well, there is a lot to it, because I feel like the thing that resonated right off the bat with people is that there was honesty around it. I mean, I think one thing that really hits me about the cards that you make, and you had brought it up too, is how honest they are. And even pre-pandemic, we're just kind of out here in the world, like having to fake a lot of stuff. And I think that that's true, right? We're all kind of behind a facade, putting on a face, and then you go into pandemic, and now the people who you would put a facade on aren't even there, so you can't even be your fake self. So you yearn
Yep.
for honesty even more. And I think I think coming out of this, certainly mental health, certainly a lot of the stuff just dealing with life. We have to figure out a way how to do that on a larger scale. And I know that that's bigger. Well, and I don't know how this could sound, but like I know that that's not specifically about the cards, but I think the cards are an example of that issue.
Yeah, and I always say that there's two things that I think the world can always use more of, and it's more honesty and more laughter. And so that is sort of what all the cards are built around. And usually they combine the two. That's, I feel like, my gold shining stars is when I can find a way to combine the two things seamlessly.
Mm-hmm.
But I again, I like know it's a greeting card, but I've just heard so many stories of cards becoming bigger conversations, becoming ways to connect with people, and I just feel like the more honest that I am with the people in my life, but also with this community that I've built of like fellow weirdos, the more honest that I am, the stronger bonds that you build with other people, because it you get trust, right? You
Mm-hmm.
build that trust with people. And I just think that it's really easy, like you said, to put on just this facade and just be like, yep, this is who I am, it's fine, everything's good, and it's
Mm-hmm.
glossy and lovely and looks really nice on social media. And it's a lot harder to take that off on purpose and dig deep inside and say, oh, it's really messy in here. It's like a bunch of pumpkin seeds with all
Mm-hmm.
the little bits on them, but I'm gonna just keep digging because who knows what we'll find. I'm going off on so many
Oh,
tangents,
it's all
but
good. I
but
love
yeah,
it.
but I think that that is my goal with the cards is not just you send a person a card, but maybe this will lead to a conversation or an inside joke or another way to connect with someone that's not just a piece of paper.
Yeah, and I love how you draw the line between honesty and connection, because I think honesty can sometimes get a bad rap because the word blunt is often synonymous with honesty. Like, I'm going to give you a piece of my mind no matter how it impacts you, or no matter what it does to us relationally. I'm just going to come at you with, we'll call it honesty. And, the way you're using it is it is true, however I'm feeling, however I'm dealing with something, but it's truth for the sake of being understood, and it's truth for the sake of building a relationship rather than pushing somebody away.
Yeah. And I think especially women hear that a lot, right? That they're not allowed to be fully honest because they do fall into the like bossy or brash or blunt or whatever other sort of feeling. And I think that there's a way to be honest and empathetic. And I think that's something that people don't strike very often, is like, how can I explain what's happening within me to another person without making it like it's not their fault, but I just want them to know me better, or I want them to understand this feeling better. And it is like a tool that if you don't use it, you don't know how it works. And I think for me, I've been lucky enough that it's a tool that I have been honing for a long time. And I will say that I was not always kind with my honesty. I have not always been a kind and honest person. There are a lot of times in my life, especially when I was working at the Apple Store in New York. New York sort of wears you down, and it's really easy to fall into that same trap of snarkiness, which, yes, sometimes I can be snarky, but or meanness. I have been a mean person in my life. And so I think for me, it was the realization that if my honesty drifts toward meanness or jealousy or snarkiness, then it's probably not a them problem. It's probably a me problem. And that's probably worth investigating. Like, why is my honesty going to the point of pointing the fingers or thinking that that they're causing an issue within me? For example, like jealousy for me is a big one. And then if I'm jealous of someone, I'll go, I don't understand why they got, like, a book deal is a big one for me. Anyone who gets a book deal, I don't even know what book I want to write, but anybody who gets a book deal, I'm like, why do they get a book deal? They're not even that, like, charming or funny or whatever. And then I have to, like, dial it back and realize, hey, Kiwi, this is a you feeling not good enough, feeling self-conscious, feeling like it'll never happen for you. These are feelings that you need to deal with without putting that stuff on somebody else. And so it's like, it's a hard tool to try to get use of, like this honest but strategic, I guess, is not even empathetic, but like honesty in a strategic way without blaming other people for everything else that's going on within you.
Yeah, and I think the method, because you're the medium that you do it, with Craft Boner. I think that kind of speaks, and that's a good check. And I'm using the cards as kind of a metaphor versus the physical cards, but like I think that is a good metaphor for the honesty that's on the cards is ultimately meant to be given to somebody, and if the honesty that you're giving is not a gift, or it's not something that you hand over, I mean, it's very hard to kind of give somebody a card in an angry way, like it's not a baseball bat. But, honesty and asking for, you were talking about women and being able to really stand up and have weight given to words or opinions or anything like that. I mean, that's really what the point of honesty and relationship building is, right? You're asking, in being honest, for somebody to give weight to what you're saying, or for somebody to honor what you're saying or your story or your emotions, and to be able to either carry that with you or recognize the heaviness that you're serious, provide context, anything, and then engage from there. And, I think if you think about it like a card, if you think about honesty like a card, then it's not a weapon. And, I know with me, with being honest and with using my words and stuff like that, honesty isn't an umbrella that encompasses all things. Honesty is more like a mixing board where I might have that skill really good in a professional context and maybe even in some personal context. But if it's about this topic, either because of something that happened in my past, honesty may be a weapon, in there, and I may have to dig and, maybe go to therapy or maybe talk it out with somebody to figure out how it cannot be that. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work, but I think that gives credit to you to how you're able to go through that process so succinctly and so hilariously in a card.
Yeah, it's I've never thought of it in such like abstract terms before, but I feel like you're hitting the nail on the head of what I'm trying to do, what I've done. And I think also that there's ways to do honesty with love. And I don't think a lot of people do that. I don't think that's a thing that the world is very good at in
Mm-hmm.
general. And so, um, and I guess it also goes hand in hand with vulnerability sometimes, but yeah, I'm trying to get to the point where people can say, I don't even know. I'm trying to get to the point where people say like, "Hey, I see you."
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's what all my cards are. Is honesty is a huge factor of it, but it's that honesty and building trust to say, "Hey, I see you." Even if I don't exactly understand what you're going through, like you are seen, you are loved or appreciated or whatever other message, or it's your birthday even, but like, hey, I see you. Because a lot of it is reading people too, to know like, hey, this card is going to be perfect for this person in my life, or hey, this will make this person laugh, but it might make this other person cry.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's knowing how to give that love, that honesty, and just how to see people in different ways based on what their needs are.
Yeah, I think I think the way you said that made me think of like typically I'll go get a card because I have to give it to somebody, and either for like a birthday, like the birthday is the reason why I have to give a card. But in yours, I mean, a lot of the ones that I've read, I see the card and then I think of the person that needs the card. Or like, you know, it doesn't
Yes.
need to be a birthday, it doesn't need to be that. And I think that's what's great and kind of what adds the punch to that honesty is you're like, oh my gosh, like this is the greatest, like you said, inside joke. This is something that I could share with somebody because even just reading the card made me think about them instead of going, okay, the birthday party's in 2 hours. What can I get? Happy birthday, you old person. Okay. You know, and stick it in a card or in
Yeah,
a
I've
envelope.
never really thought about it, but it's so true. And I mean, all of the cards, not all of them, but most of the cards are just based on, hey, what would I give this like me Kiwi as a person, what would I give to my friend? And that's sort of when I'm doing my brainstorming sessions. That's how I've come up with all my marriage cards and baby cards and whatever else because I'm not married, I don't have babies, but I can think about like, oh, how would I talk to my friends about this and how have they talked to me about this? And so yeah, I guess I'm sort of designing for a person when I'm drawing the card, and so it's definitely not going to fit everybody in your life, but there will probably be a person. So it makes sense that when I'm designing for someone that that's how it turns out when people are reading the cards. That's just really fun. I like that.
So when we had met in Denver, and I actually think it was at the same time when we had worked together. I was doing stand up comedy, and some of the jokes I would write, you know, I'd either work them out in my head or write them down or whatever, and the punchline would come, and I would laugh. But I'd be like, okay, yeah, but that one was for me. I'm never gonna do that one on stage. That one was for this moment. I kind of chuckled. Do you have an endless amount of cards that are like that? Where you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
good
Oh
job,
yeah.
Kiwi.
Oh yeah, constantly. Um and it's funny because there's not a ton of rhyme or reason like what cards will sell and what cards won't. People ask me that all the time like, do you know that a card's going to be a bestseller? And I'm like, sometimes I have sort of a gut feeling like that this one will be popular, but there are a lot of cards that I have made or that I have ideas for that I just either they've completely flopped. Like there are cards where I've sold two and ordered like 100 of them or whatever. And I think that the most recent one coming to mind is I made a card a while ago that says "I love you and your powerful thighs," and just nobody bought that card. um, and but it's hard. It's a lot of experimenting because there are other cards that I thought I am the only one who will laugh at this. Like nobody else will laugh at this, and then they've since been my bestsellers. And so it's a lot of just like trial and error, and I think I've refined it, you know, more and more of the as the years have gone on, and I figured out like what sort of people resonate toward more. But yeah, oh yeah, I have thousands of card ideas in my like in my rejected folder.
So what?
And actually, I just put a bunch of them on. I have Bill, my boyfriend, like tell me Valentine's Day cards that he would make every
I think
year.
I saw you post something about this.
Yeah, and so it's like my favorite time of year. So I think I need to do it more because they're just absurd and like specific and very ridiculous. And I just have so much fun drawing them because sometimes I get so in my head about drawing a card because I want it to look exactly the right way, and then I get imposter syndrome about what I'm drawing because I don't necessarily consider myself an artist, and so like there's just like a lot of feelings mixed in there. But when I'm drawing for no reason, it's so fun. It's so fun. I can completely take the pressure off and be like, this is not a real card. It's just its only purpose is to make people laugh on Instagram.
So what do you remember the card that sold a lot, and each time as you saw it sell and sell and sell, you were like, really? That's what you guys are into, huh? Okay.
Yes. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you like, it's not super bad, but like maybe there's no curse words or anything, but like if you're sensitive to body parts, like maybe just cover your ears or like skip ahead a little bit.
There are plenty of other podcasts you can listen to.
Yeah, but like if you're sensitive, sorry, but definitely that card is the Your Penis is My Favorite card. By far and away. It is my bestseller. It makes people laugh. And I made it for an ex-boyfriend a long, long time ago and thought this is the stupidest thing. But it's how I feel in this moment. And yeah, it has been my bestseller for many, 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 many years.
I mean, that is so fantastic. And
I mean, it's a really nice compliment. If you get that card, you're like, hell yes.
Out of all of them in the world, wow, this is great.
I mean, also my business name is Craft Boner, so it sort of like comes with the territory that people.
Totally.
It's a litmus test, is what I say. Is like if I'm doing a craft show or people are browsing online and they see Craft Boner and they're like, ugh, not for me. That's fine. But if people see it, they'll be like, it's two camps. Nobody ever feels like meh about it. It's like people really like it or they really don't like it. So it works really well in that regard.
I just love like how happy the cards look, and then like that will be on the card. I mean, it's like
it's the juxtaposition that for sure.
That's what it is. And you're like the opposite of Taylor Swift because she just writes breakup songs. It's like happy, but like that juxtaposition is just really funny. I don't know. It's like the reverse Taylor Swift with bottomless mimosas on a Saturday morning, you know?
That is the best compliment. Isaac, that is the best compliment I've ever gotten in my entire life. Thank you. I'm using that. I'm taking that. That is my new mantra.
I love it. So have you ever thought about doing anything else like t-shirts? Yeah, I mean, you could pretty much do anything, but what has kept you doing primarily like stickers and cards? Is there something about those mediums?
I have a few t-shirts and things like mugs and stuff that are printed by somebody else and then shipped out. Mm-hmm. For a long time, it was space constraints just because I don't have the space to do things. Mm-hmm. But the longer that I'm in business, the more I realize the things that I really gravitate toward are storytelling mm-hmm. and connection. And you will notice that products aren't even like in that at all. And so I'm trying to figure out where, like, this has been my existential question for like all year really is, I still love doing products. I still have ideas for specific products that I want to put into the world, but some people, like, that's their thing. Mm-hmm. Like, they love seeing a product come to life. And for me, it doesn't light me up quite as much. For me, it's like the reaction when someone's like, oh my gosh, yes, this is my friend, or oh my gosh, let me tell you a story, or whatever else. Which sounds fake. It sounds like I'm just saying that, but it is really true. And it's one of the things I've struggled with in the pandemic is that with selling online, I don't get to see those reactions mm-hmm. anymore. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of what I'm trying to figure out is like, how do I want to take this? And also weirdly, like, being likable on the internet is a skill, and I didn't think of it as a skill for a long time. And so I'm having fun sort of honing that and being putting more jokes and a little more content and hilariously, I've always been too scared of stand-up comedy. So when you're like, I did stand-up comedy, I'm thinking over here like, you're so brave, you're so brave, you're so brave. So yeah, I have no idea. Basically, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to have fun. I think that when you are a small business owner, it's really easy to get wrapped up in the like goals and like not even goals, but what do I need to make to eat money, to have enough money
I
to
knew you were
eat.
doing, I knew you were in business for a long time. I didn't know it was going that well.
It's not. I mean, it's good. Like, I can live, but I'm not like I'm fully like I said, vulnerability is all for me. So I think I paid myself $20,000 last year.
Yeah.
Which, if you do the math, is minimum wage. Maybe below minimum wage.
Well, considering how many hours a small business owner actually puts in.
Yeah, if you took all the hours that I put in, $20,000 is not that much.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're a small business owner, it's really easy to get wrapped up in that. And that is why I also find myself making things for other people and not making like what I feel like I want to make. I find myself saying, okay, well, this is selling well, so let's make more stuff like this. And that's where it always goes awry for me. That's where like things like the train always goes off the track at that point. And so I'm trying to get out of this like I'm trying to get out of like worrying about money constantly. I'm trying to get out of making things that I'm making because people will buy them. And I'm trying to focus more and it's a privilege to even be able to say this because I know a lot of small business owners are struggling much worse than I am. And so for me, the goal is to pull myself out of that and say, how can I have more fun in my business? Like, how can I enjoy my days a little bit more? How can I connect with people more? How can I make people laugh more? And I think that going back to those tenets, that's the goal, really. Like, there's no other goals except to just constantly be keeping those in mind and just doing fun, weird projects because they make me happy.
Yeah.
It sounds selfish to even say it, but it's true.
Well, and I think that's profound, that you pick that up. I forget which episode of the podcast, me and the guest went on here, but this sounds blunt, but it's also very liberating at the same time where, I feel the exact same thing with this podcast, right? A lot of pressure. I want to honor the stories of the people who come on, make sure that, as many people as possible can find it, can hear it, can listen to it and be inspired. But it's humbling to know that ultimately, though, if after today I never did another episode, no one would care. Like, in the sense of like, they might be sad I'm not doing the podcast, but that would last maybe 2 weeks and then everything moves on. And for me, that's become a very liberating thing because then I don't have to worry about what people think who would be sad for a week and then move on. I can truly have the conversations that I want to have. I can truly be inspired by the stories and tell the stories that I want to tell and hang out with people who I want to hang out with. And all of that pressure is just off and something happens and things click. And I don't know, something happens that can't happen if you don't feel liberated in that way.
Yeah. And people ask me all the time, how can I quit my job to work on my creative passion? And I usually tell them, don't do that. Don't do it. At least not right away, because I feel like the only reason that I got to the point of knowing where I wanted to take my business is because for 4 or 5 years of running my business, I also had a job. So I didn't have the pressure of making the money put on what do I want my business to become, because the second that you've got to eat or you've got to pay your rent, your priorities shift, as they should. but it doesn't allow for a lot of creative freedom. We make choices based out of fear, and anytime that I make a fear-based choice, it never turns out well. Like it never, I'll learn from it. You know, it's a lesson. It's good to make those decisions, but it's never something that aligns with everything that I want to do. So it does feel like a privilege to be able to try to walk myself out of it, but it's one of those situations like the chicken and the egg situation, is that the more that you're true to what you want to be putting into the world, the messaging that you want people to hear, how you want people to feel when they listen to you or touch your products or whatever else, the more that you do that, then typically the more traction it gains. So, you know, it's figuring out that balance of and I'm really lucky too. I mean, I have to be completely honest and say that Bill, my partner, helps me out a ton. So I'm not having to, you know, pay a bunch of rent or whatever else. We've made a lot of sacrifices, like not buying a house and like trying these things so that I could try to get on my not on my feet per se, but try to hone in. So I have this freedom to figure out what I want to say, how I want to say it, how I want to spend my days. But yeah, if you don't have that yet, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you're not in that position. I've been in business for 10 years now, and I'm still just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's kind of a theme that has happened on this podcast a ton is, you know, I know a lot of people who ask questions like that simply because they hate where they're at right now. And so how they will do anything to not be where they're at right now. And, you know, certainly sometimes depending on the situation, that is enough motivation to change things and to harness skills that maybe, you know, put them on hyperspeed. So maybe they became really good business owner really quickly. But for the majority of people, like that doesn't happen. You have to do it over the course of years. And, you know, one thing that I've learned and that I've preached more and more on this podcast is you have to not hate your present. That there are things when you are building a business and when you have a job that you are only going to be able to do when that is the scenario, right? Yeah. And so look for those things that you should be doing that your scenario allows for, and don't hate it. Embrace it, lean into it. And then when you don't have the job, what can you do now with the extra time to devote it to it that you couldn't do, and be grateful and lean into that? Because if you're not grateful with the job, you're not going to be grateful when that job's gone and it's just doing what you need to do, particularly when there's that added pressure on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still to this day struggle with the like enjoying your present, because I get wrapped up a lot in packing orders, packaging cards, these things that I don't really enjoy. And
so you take me as someone who that's your passion.
Well, I know, right? It's like, yeah, I just want to like do this busy work all day long. Yeah, LOL. But yeah, I think it's I lost my train of thought, but I think that one thing that people don't ask themselves enough, whether they're starting a business or starting a side project or a side hustle or whatever you want to call it, and I really want to figure out a way to talk about this more, is it's so easy when you're starting something to get lost in what platform should I host this thing on? How should I sell this thing? How am I going to get customers? What should I be doing on Instagram? And I get these questions from business owners constantly, like all the time. I get them, should I use Shopify or Squarespace? And my answer is always, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter because I think people ask these questions instead of asking themselves, am I putting my time and energy into this because I'm trying to avoid something else? Am I putting my time and energy into this because I think that it's what I want to do, but I'm not sure? Or like, am I putting my time, energy, and money into this because I think that it's going to be a huge thing right away, and I have a lot of really hard like expectations and pressure around it. people go into creating a business or a side project for so many reasons. And what I would like people to be asking themselves when they go into a business or a venture or like creative project of any kind, even if it's like sitting down and doing a drawing, is like, how do I want to feel when I'm doing this? How do I want other people to feel about seeing this thing or listening to me or looking at my website or whatever else? What do I want my days to be like in an ideal world? What are the things that I could do like so much so that I forget to eat or I forget to go to the bathroom? And can I do these things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? Because that's really like what I wish I'd asked myself when I was starting my business, because I actually started making jewelry and I realized really quickly, I feel like a factory. I don't want to be making jewelry all the time. And so I've just had to shift it so many times. And I think it's easy to get bogged down in the weeds of like this platform or that, or should I be marketing or should I be doing this? All these shoulds instead of like, what is the core reason of why you want to be doing this, and do you like, can you do this consistently? Because that's really all it all comes down to, right? Is like constantly it's just like not quitting. It's just over and over not quitting. That's like all putting yourself out into the world is just being really stubborn.
That's such a profound thing too, because asking yourself, if you're thinking about doing something or taking a big risk with starting a business and it's all that. And, that is a big question. Am I willing to not quit on this and adapt and do what I need to do and do it over and over and over again? And I loved what you said about how do I want to feel when I'm doing this? How do I want my days? All of that. I think those are questions that not a lot of people ask themselves about a ton of things. I mean, that could be business, that could be losing weight, that could be family life, that could be, a lot of things. And I think that's really, really profound what you said. Thank you.
Yeah, I learned it the hard way. When you build a product-based business, it feels like everyone's telling you the gold standard is to have your own retail store, like to have a physical brick and mortar store that someone can walk in and buy your items. And I said, cool, all right, that's going to be my goal. I want to do that. I worked really hard. We had a retail store. I had a partner who we shared like half and half of the retail store. And I worked super, super hard, probably harder than I've worked in my entire life to get this up and running. And we did it, and customers came in, and it was good, and it was fine. And then about a year and a half in, I realized, and it wasn't even just the retail stores, my whole business. I was just building this business. And then at one point, I looked around, and I said, I don't like any of this. I don't like what my days have become. I have ulcers from not sleeping at night because I'm so stressed out about how am I going to pay the employees that I have? How am I going to pay the rent? And so I feel like if you don't ask yourself those questions, life at some point will ask them for you, and it'll be at a time where you're going to have to shift a lot of stuff, and you're going to have to take a lot of risks, and it's going to be really scary, and it's probably going to hurt a lot. And so yeah, I just feel like I need to talk about it more, because I think it's something that people don't ask. And you're right, it's not about starting a business. It's about like, how do I want my days to be in my ideal job? How do I want my boss to be talking to me in my ideal job? Like, how do I want to spend my off hours? What does my ideal relationship look like? It's a lot of self-reflection, and I'm not really into journaling, but like even just writing lists, I love a list. And so to keep myself on track, I write lists a lot. Like, what do I want to be doing more of? What's missing in my days? What do I crave doing but don't have the time to do it? What am I scared of doing but would like to try? Just like taking your own temperature and like seeing where you're at and how you feel about things. I don't think people do that enough.
Yeah, well, and if they do it, it's also the process of doing it and then recognizing that the first time you do it, you're probably lying to yourself. Because being honest with yourself is a skill too. And so you have to do it and do it and do it and do it, because ultimately, if you take a jump and you are BSing yourself a little bit, you can't BS yourself. So when the rubber meets the road, there's going to be friction of some kind. And You know, you got to be able to deal with it.
Or it's just I've been practicing this for years, and I still fall into the grass is greener scenario all the time. All the time. I'm like, oh no, I'd like it much better if, you know, I lived here, or if this were my job, or if I was working on this, or like, I also do it of like, when I get a house, I'll exercise more. And it's like, that's not true. Like, you could exercise more right now. So it's like taking those, it's again, it's honesty. It's being really honest with yourself, and knowing yourself well enough to say, hey, I think you're full of it right now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
Man, that analogy, the grass is greener. I'm being in Phoenix now. It's like the grass is on the other side. Nothing's green here, but you
You're
know,
like, there's
whatever.
no grass.
well, Kiwi, as we kind of turn the corner here, every single guest is asked this question as the last question. And man, we've talked about so much in even just this little bit that we've spent together. There's going to be people who listen to this podcast and who hear your story and who admire that you've been able to be as honest with yourself as you've learned to be, and have harnessed and have practiced and all of that, and certainly have worked through things that have happened to you and all of that by being honest, and the cards have certainly helped and all of that. But somebody listening, and I can guarantee you there'll be some people who listen and go, well, that's good for Kiwi, but you know, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I'm made of the same stuff. Her circumstance allowed her to be honest with herself. I either don't have time, I have these expectations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What would you tell those people to encourage them?
I guess I would say, as a background, I have been lactose intolerant probably my whole life. I just now discovered that I'm lactose intolerant. Like, I just figured it out because I just listened to my body enough to be like, hey, you don't feel good when you eat dairy, and you can force yourself to feel good, but like, you're still not going to feel great. You're going to have to go to the bathroom. And so I think, I'm just telling the people this because I'm 33 years old and I'm just now learning how to listen to my body. Like, I'm just now figuring it out. Like, are you hungry? Do you have to pee? What do you have to do? And I think what I would tell people is, instead of demanding things from yourself, I would ask you to treat yourself as an old friend that you're going on a date with, and say, what do you like? What interests you? What could you talk about for hours? And slowly get to know yourself and not feel the pressure. Maybe not even a date. Maybe it's an old friend grabbing coffee. Because once you strip away the pressure, once you strip away of like, I need to go on a week-long retreat to find myself, once you strip away all of that, you realize that you'll start to find yourself in unexpected ways. Maybe it's 5 minutes sitting in traffic and you have a thought, and instead of dismissing that thought, you go down the road with it and you say, hey, thought, what are you trying to teach me? Why are you popping up now? What's the importance of this right now? It's allowing yourself to be open enough to find out who you are, to find out what you like. And the more that you do this in the tiniest of ways, and I actually started doing this in figuring out what I don't like, because it's easier to figure out what you don't like versus what you do like. And so for me, one big way, my boyfriend will always say, what do you want to do for dinner? And I'd always say, I don't know what I want to do for dinner. I'd say, I do not want to make the decision of what to have for dinner. And even that is just a very small way of figuring out exactly what it is. And instead of putting some sort of blanket statement, you're like carving out little pieces of yourself. And the more that you even figure out what you don't like, the easier it is to figure out what you do like. Once you figure out what you like, it just becomes this I'm using so many train metaphors, but it becomes this rolling train that you cannot stop. And you'll start to see it in every aspect of your life. Is you'll start to see, oh, I like the way that felt. I did not like the way that thing felt. And you'll also start to find your people probably a little bit more, because you'll realize that there's people in your life that you don't like the same things at all. But you'll discover new people. And this is, again, just like very rambling, but I feel like baseline, too long, didn't read, be a friend to yourself. and listen.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I think that's huge because I mean in this past year, because we haven't seen a lot of our friends or even our family, I've noticed it when I see people face to face, where before the pandemic, I don't think anybody would call me socially awkward.
I'm so awkward now. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm really socially awkward now. And it's funky, and we forget how to be a friend, because, and I don't know how this sounds, but like we've fallen out of practice, and different things, different rhythms in our life, seeing that person at work, or whatever you're involved in outside of work, seeing that person provided a rhythm for the friendship, and when there wasn't that rhythm, all of a sudden you forget how to be a friend, and that could include yourself a lot too. And so, yeah, that question is certainly worth asking. And so, Kiwi, on the interwebs, where can people find you?
Craft Boner. I pretty much exclusively hang out on Instagram.
I'm just sorry. I'm so immature. It gets me every time. Okay.
No, yeah.
Sorry. I probably chuckled over it, but go ahead. Where can they find you again?
No, you're good. You can always find me. I mean, not always. I'm trying to set boundaries, but you can find me on Craft Boner at Instagram. That's sort of where I hang out. I do some stuff on like Facebook with Craft Boner, and then craftboner.com is the website, and there's a bunch of links and other goodness there.
Awesome. Do you have a card or just one that you've written readily available that you would like to read us, just to send us out with a laugh? I'm totally putting you on the spot right now.
I don't know if it's a laugh. But I did, one of my new favorites says, "I'm glad we fell in friend love," which, goes right hand in hand with like being friends with yourself. Which can sometimes feel very selfish, but once you realize that like you're being your best version and like easiest to be yourself, then it's good for everyone else. I did also do one that says recently for Valentine's Day that says, if I get murdered, please make sure they talk about it on my favorite true crime podcast. So I feel like that's relevant. Podcast.
Oh, exactly. See, thank you, Kiwi. I appreciate you. And for the listeners, please, I mean, this has been a fantastic episode. Thank you, Kiwi, for coming on. And you guys know the rule of the game. At the end, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a review. All of those things. And you guys know, it's not because I want more subscribers. Nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that if messages and stories like Kiwi's are going to get out to more people, then those are the rules of the game. And that is what is needed to make sure that more ears are inspired by Kiwi. And so thank you so much. I've absolutely loved this episode. I hope you have too. And you know what? This week, go out and do something to make yourself proud, okay? That was so much fun.